Hi, everybody, and thanks for attending today's webinar, Preventing a DevOps Transformation Stall, with Chef's Worldwide Director of Customer Success, Tom Lerch. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Tom, over to you.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to a continuing series of webinars designed to help you get value out of your relationship to Chef and our Chef automation stack. Today's subject, I'm going to be talking about how you can prevent a DevOps transformation stall, some practical actions you can take to keep your organization, through transformation on track. So, ideal audience, I'm hoping that anyone's here is just someone involved in some sort of a DevOps transformation, whether real or imagined. I hope to have something for everyone. Your time is valuable, so I want to make sure that we get something out of it for you, whether you're an executive or a leader. Maybe you're an enterprise architect, or you're a practitioner and staff and you're involved in some sort of a DevOps transformation. I think you'll have some interesting thoughts out of this. This is not going to be a sales talk about Chef or Chef products or Chef consulting in any way. We're just here to share some perspective with you. My background is coming from a DevOps transformation background. Prior to coming to Chef, I worked in a couple of different large organizations where not only was responsible for DevOps transformation, but prior to coming here, I worked in one of the largest digital transformation organizations on the planet at IBM, and helping them manage large transformations with our consulting clients. Here at Chef, though, it's been interesting. I have seen more DevOps organizations, work with more DevOps organizations in the short time I've been here than in the 2 years prior. So there we have a lot going on in the world of DevOps transformation, and a lot of information we hope to share with you that could be valuable and relevant to you. So I'm going to talk straight with you. Very straightforward. We really have no interest not to do that because, one, I'm not a consultant. You're paying me to come in and consult to your organization. But two, this is kind of a free information. So we hope that we can just provide some relevant, factual information for you. So let's start with the truth. Transformations of this type, scope, and scale are among the most difficult types of transformations done anywhere. It's very difficult to affect these kinds of transformations because you're dealing with people. When you're dealing with a software integration or a large infrastructure installation, there are very clear milestones and paths and objective assessments on whether you're on track or not. In a DevOps transformation, everything's kind of fuzzy, and so it's sometimes difficult to make those things happen effectively. They're expensive, they're very demanding, and there's a high failure rate. Typically, most DevOps transformations either stop and start, falter, or stall once or twice before they really reach some degree of fruition. So why do it? If it's expensive and it's hard and fails all the time, why would we do it? And can you explain that, really? Let's dig into that a little bit and see if we can uncover really the basis for these transformations and why they're so critically important. There clearly is a strategic imperative going on in the world. Businesses are being tasked to deliver faster, better quality, more relevancy to the customer, and it's getting difficult to do that. The range of improvement is harder. So the rewards have gone to companies who've focused on the customer experience in some sort of an innovative way. Think about Uber, who reinvented the taxi hailing function. So on your phone, you could not only hail a taxi, but you could track its progress to yourself. That's innovative. How can we deliver meaningful, relevant, and quality solutions fast, being able to turn around an idea quickly? In one organization I worked with, they got wind of a change a competitor was making by listening in to what was going on in the patent office, and within 10 days had a competitive response to that and beat them to market with it. It was because they had invested in some of the agile types of process and methodologies that allow them to execute quickly. Obviously, you need to have employees who are engaged and are working towards a common goal, people who've then created and developed collaborative organizations capable of supporting new business. But why? Why do we have to change to do that? What is it about the organization that's not working? So let's get into that a little bit. History is replete with companies who had the opportunity to transform their markets, but organizational resistance prevented them from acting, and they failed miserably. Sears is a good example we're living with and watching right now. At one point, Sears was Amazon for the United States. It had the catalog business. It had reached all across America. Everybody knew what Sears was. and they sold more products and goods through the catalog business than anybody in the history. At one point, they had more than 75% of all the U.S. population's credit card profiles, information, spending habits. They could have leveraged that into something like a MasterCard or a Visa, because the Sears card at that point was one of the most prominent, most exclusive cards to get. They failed. Blockbuster had the ability to buy Netflix for just a few $1 million in the early stages of their infancy. Within 4 years, they were almost completely out of business. Now there's one Blockbuster store remaining in the country. Kodak, who obviously had the largest dominating market in the film industry, spent so much time and effort focusing on film, they entirely missed the digital camera phenomena and were eclipsed and become irrelevant. It's a paradox of success that companies with seemingly sustainable competitive advantage failed to realize their potential and became relevant. Why? Why did that happen? It's important you understand what you're up against and what you'll need to change in order to keep from becoming one of these relics. Transformations often stall and fail because the underlying organization is not balanced to allow people to identify and explore new innovations. We'll explain by that. If you think about your business, you need to have equal opportunities for people to exploit an existing asset. So you think if you're in manufacturing, you're in financial services, you're in insurance, your products and customers are very stable. You need predictable processes. You want to have efficiency and control and not a lot of variance and not a lot of changes. That's exploiting an existing resource. However, if you want to identify a new product, a new line of business, something that is completely different than what you're already doing, you'll have to have an explorer mindset. And that means you have to innovate. And instead of managing processes, we need people who can lead and inject speed and autonomy and flexibility into the processes. And not variance reduction, but variance enhancement. How quickly can we enhance the product? These two types of organizations are in opposition to one another. Organizations that are configured to run and exploit have a very difficult time accepting new groups that have a focus on exploring, or maybe taking on an idea that doesn't even been proven or may not have a financial ROI associated with it yet. Some of the best ideas that have come out of technology in the last 5 years were launched with really no early expectation on how they would deliver revenue. And that's an anathema to organizations. And when that happens, typically leaders of the organizations that are exploiting research or exploiting assets will call out and make fun of or criticize or make it difficult for those exploratory access work to take place, calling them a waste of money, and we're not seeing results, and creating this tension that exists in the organization. As a result, often these initiatives are abandoned and fail and left in the dustbin, leaving opportunities behind them. So you need to understand how to position this concept of exploitation and exploration with your stakeholders so they understand what's at stake. As companies attempt to explore, they'll have to create different cultural norms about what they do and how they do it, and expectations and performance and measurements of performance. So there are some practical considerations for communicating the why behind these sorts of things. And so we think it's important that you frame your story within the context of questions important to your stakeholder. How will this affect our ability to deliver meaningful value to our customers? This is something your leaders should be talking about. How will this reduce our cost to deliver? If you want to resonate with your stakeholders, you need to have answers to those questions that you can spit out. Now, I can't give you a canned answer because your organization's unique. You're going to have unique characteristics about it and reasons, but you must understand those reasons and be able to communicate them. Also, I encourage you to emphasize the ability to innovate and create. This innovation mindset is what is setting organizations apart, and it really is that strategic imperative. How do we create an organization that embraces that innovation? And then emphasize the progress towards the 2B state. Our automation efforts will improve our efficiency, accuracy, and ability to change. Be positive, communicate the positive, emphasize that ability to innovate and create, and begin to transform the messaging. Now, what will you have to change? I don't know. I don't know everything you're going to have to change, and you don't either yet. But I'll bet you it's more than you think. And our experience says that the key to this is to not have a plan for what's going to have in place, because it's going to change, but to instead put in place the proper structure to design, communicate, and execute those iterative changes that will take place over the coming years. There is no such thing as a sustainable competitive advantage anymore. Mostly what we can do as an organization is the ability to create temporary changes, temporary competitive advantages that we can iterate on and try to get better faster than the other person. No longer is the key to the five porters way of recognizing competition and creating up barriers to entry. The barriers to entry have changed. The digital economy is a different place. To do this, it takes time and a strong foundation upon which your strategy rests. And we suggest that rests on a foundation of values, principles, and practices that help align the workforce with a shared perspective. So typically what I would do if I, as a consultant, would have been to work with you to identify those values and principles that are unique to your organization and help you create them in such a way that they align with your organization and become this clarion call for people to follow and to adopt. Now, probably your organization already has existing values, these corporate values that espouse how you want to act and how you want to be as a company. What I'm suggesting is that there's a subset of values that exist within the IT organization that are relevant to your organization that help your people overcome challenges and barriers. And then you need to identify principles that those values will sit upon, that guide the way people act and think. And on top of those become the practices, and then your strategy has a firm foundation. Let's go through a few of these things so I can be more clear what I'm talking about. Values. Values establish the core expectations of how people work together. So, do we act with courage and integrity and respect? Transparency. Are we clear about what we're going to do? Do we have drive and motivation? These values are unique. Now, these are just some example values. I don't think these are necessarily directly applicable to your organization. They might have some relevancy, but moreover, you're going to need to work to identify the ones that are unique to you and that resonate with your people. The same holds true with principles. Principles provide this aspirational guidance on the behavior and culture that we want to do and set in place some ideas about how we should conduct ourselves. And it's important that you identify what those are. In this case, we've got 5 of them here. Again, these are example principles, but beginning with the end in mind, know your outcomes and iterate to reach that goal. That's a principle. So identifying those principles, espousing those principles, holding them up as standards helps you begin to shape the internal culture of your organization. And we'll get to that, but it's going to be one of the most important things that you can do to keep your DevOps transformations from stalling. And then on top of the values and principles are the practices. And so common practices that facilitate this consistent communication and interactions with one another. And there may be different types of, practices that you'll embody across different aspects of the organization. So for example, for collaboration, you might involve retrospectives and showcases and have stand-ups. Or in the leadership, you're trying to run a Kanban board and do a burn down and burn up and define user stories on your large wall of work. And your delivery practices, how you migrate and deploy code, how you build and integrate code, how you check and test code. All of these are particular practices that you must work to identify and communicate. And we suggest that you do that rather publicly. For example, on the walls of work, on several clients that I've worked on, we would actually take up windows in the building and fill them up with all the user stories. And so there would be hundreds of yellow stickies and red stickies and green stickies all over the windows. And all across the corporate campus, people were looking up at the windows on this front area where all these stickies, what's going on up there? What are they doing? And it created an interest. And one client, we actually moved the desk out into the cafeteria so that as a team, we were working inside the cafeteria and drawing more people in to hear what was going, stop by, see what's going on, being transparent with them about the transformation. It was very, very effective. So then how do you start these initiatives and how do they spread? Our experience says it typically starts in IT, but if it's going to prove effective, it has to transform other parts of the business. So we believe it starts in IT and starts spreading out. So the IT, the CIO, typically going to be starting this initiative, so the people and systems that affect that change. But as they start to work with the business to identify product direction and product owners and get specification from them about what they should be building, those practices start impacting the business. And then as they start looking for support from legal or from HR or from procurement, all these things start playing into the bear where the entire organization starts being affected by this transformation that started in IT. One point we would make about this middle ground. This is the place where your managers live. This is the place where your managers, senior managers, and maybe some directors, but mostly middle management who are in a position to do the work, oversee the work, and make sure the work gets done. And sometimes they'll put up internal resistance and kind of form glue to keep the organization moving forward. Well, we don't do it that way here, and we're not going to do it that way here, or the yeah butters. So you'll have to have a purposeful effort to work with them directly, persuade them, talk to them about it, sit down and meet with them individually and to do that work. But who leads this change? Oftentimes we see organizations leaving this change in the hands of practitioners who have some new ideas and, oh, sure, you guys go off and run your scrums that way. That's great. Aren't you cute doing Agile and having fun? That's great. But they don't necessarily appreciate the larger implications and don't install people senior enough to do that work. We think one of the biggest mistakes people make when organizations is when they fail to designate a senior leader with a supporting staff to lead the effort. The effort must be championed by the CEO or CIO, who then designates a senior leader, like a senior director or a VP, to lead that effort. We think there's some best practices there. Modeling agile behavior when running your team, doing daily stand-ups, user stories, retrospectives. As you assess what needs to be done on the transformation, you should treat it as though it's a product development process where you're identifying what the needs are, you're writing user stories for them, you're assessing the level of work, you're putting them in the queue and you're performing them. All of that so very visible that other people can see it. Make your Kanban visible to everyone. Bi-weekly leadership updates via regularly scheduled sole purpose meetings. Not the kind of meetings that say, oh, let's get an update from Jen on the DevOps transformation. We got about 5 minutes left. Jen, tell us what's going on. That won't work. You're going to need purposeful, focused discussions with your executives and teammates in order to make this work. We also think it's important you have a staff of cross-functional people, not just IT developers, but someone from product development, someone from architecture, someone from security, someone from HR, someone from different parts, from infrastructure, different parts of the organization coming together to collaboratively decide what needs to be done. Regular orientations and updates for the staff are critical. We suggest you have lunch and learns or sessions that you are broadcasting, training, and teaching them the fundamentals of some of these concepts and slowly working to bring them on. And really, one of the most important things is that this leader must have some direct connection into the product area of the business. They must be respected enough to be able to have a conversation with a senior product owner in the organization who sets the direction and course for that particular product. And I would encourage you to focus your talking points on primary objective outcomes. What is the objective of this program? Improve the quality and speed of feedback to developers. This is important. Your developers need to understand what is important to the customer and why the work that they're doing is relevant. Reduce the time and resources from release branching to production. This should be an automated process for you. And if you haven't begun to automate your tool chain, then this is an early priority of helping you improve the speed across that business process. Improving repeatability of build, test, and deploy processes. Again, automation is the key to that. Getting consistent, getting high quality, getting it done quickly. all a function of automated. And, empowering your teams to act autonomously and develop their own initiatives. This is also very important. Your teams will begin to model your behavior, will begin to model how you're running your organization and follow those same guidelines. So you want to empower them to act autonomously without being forced in a kind of a command and control environment. Consistently working toward these goals will create smaller and more valuable releases of your capabilities of your product. And that's the key. You want to turn out things faster with better quality and less lead time. There's one mistake that you absolutely must avoid if you're going to be successful in a DevOps transformation. You can't assume that people are going to come along for the ride. You must assume that in the middle, that cultural glue is going to hold your organization back. So you must design and implement a cultural development plan that will engage and motivate your workforce. Work with your marketing group to help with messaging and content creation, splashy flyers or newsletters and things like that to get the information out, publishing in the internet interviews with leaders about the change and the importance of emphasizing experimentation and exploration, and not necessarily honing in on success, but on effort. Reward effort, not just success. Spotlight on new technologies and highlighting automation and security. Bring in vendors who have a point of view that can help move your organization forward with a new, innovative way of doing that work. Align your stakeholders so that they are excited about listening to vendors, at least that vendors you're talking about, those sort of things anyways. Establish a really strong emphasis on dev test and everything is code. This concept of a coded enterprise will become very increasingly important. We think that this is the future of the organizations, being able to write everything as code, your security profiles, your infrastructure profiles, your application profiles, all managed and stored in source code repositories and run as code. Lunch and Learns and brown bags provide a really good way for you to get that information out across your team. Hackathons, engagement with the local DevOps community, get some sponsorship dollars and help sponsor one of the local DevOps meetups that happens periodically. Pay for the dinner, pay for a signage, get your name, get some people engaged in that, identify some people who will be valuable contributors to that. And then work with your people with a personal touch. Not only leaders who would warrant time with you, but middle managers, taking time to work with them, identify what their challenges are, listening and being empathetic with them, take them to lunch or a cup of coffee, get personal with them so that they understand that there really is a good reason to do this transformation. So coming to a close, let me wrap it up. I'll kind of put some summary or some recommendations in front of you, some thoughts I think are just, you could leave with here. Hopefully, during the course of this call, we've got one or two ideas that may stick with you and make this time worthwhile, but here's some thoughts. Start with the organizational design, not practices. Don't go straight to Scrum and Kanban and doing all that work. Your organization needs to be aligned properly, and you must identify an executive champion to help change that culture. And so developing an intentional cultural development program is very important. Work with your leaders to establish those foundational values and principles and things that you can espouse to your organization and communicate to one another about how you work and why you work. Innovation should be a core part of your values, and how you think and execute on everything should be innovation and creativity and enhancement and value to the customer. So to do that, you must work directly with the product teams to develop empathy with the users and understand what their pain is and what's important to them. So you'll have to work with those product owners to address that end-to-end innovation process. Identify and deploy tools that automate the whole process. Automation for all of this is so important. It allows your teams to focus on things that are important. It reduces and minimizes the quality control issues and mistakes that can happen in deployments, and adds a sense of control to your organization that you've never had before. When you're able to automate so much of this stuff, your assurance that things are getting done proper will go up, and the trust and sense of commitment of the IT organization will be recognized throughout. Provide clarity and purpose to your team. Don't try to have some in-place dogma or framework that specifies that everything must be done this way, all teams align, do the same thing the same way. Sounds like it might be good. It's not. Every team is unique and individual, and you must give them time to adapt and change the way they work. And then measure success through two primary lenses, speed and cost. Identify the ways that you are improving the time to market and the way you're reducing the cost, because this is what your executives care about the most. It's been a pleasure talking with you. I hope some of this has made sense, and I hope that these recommendations will help you improve your ability of your organization to transform. We here at Chef are in the DevOps transformation business. We help your organizations not only learn how to use our software better, but we can provide insight to you, because we literally manage hundreds of DevOps organizations right now and work with them to identify those best practices and what works. I'm willing to talk with you. Be glad to get on the phone with you, answer any questions you have, help you understand our point of view, and help you understand the value of our automation coded enterprise concepts. So thank you so much. If you'd like to talk to me, please be free to give me a call or email me or check in my LinkedIn profile. It's been a pleasure. So let's go back and see, Erin, do we have any questions on the line?
Yeah, so thanks, Tom. That was great, and we will now open it up for questions. So feel free to send any questions using the Q&A widget. We do have a few here, so I will get started. The first question for you, Tom, is how can I get my CIO to listen to these concerns?
It's a good question. My guess is your CIO already knows about DevOps or thinks they know about DevOps anyways. It won't be a new concept to them, I hope. But how you talk with them about how you bring this into your organization will largely depend upon the challenges your organization is facing and what problems you need to solve. And if you can present this in such a way that it helps your CIO solve the problems that are immediately facing them, business pressure to get it done faster, business pressure to get it done cheaper, that's always happening. But what about a unique rollout that's coming in 90 to 120 days where you're concerned that maybe it's not going to roll out effectively? What if you could convince them that through a little bit tweaking in some processes, our odds of success in going up with that rollout increase dramatically? That could be helpful in helping you communicate to the CIO the value and importance of this DevOps transformation. Next question.
Perfect. Next question here is, how do I fund such an initiative?
Yes, that's a good question. These initiatives can get expensive. For a very large organization, let's say 25 to $30 billion, $25 billion or more organization, it could easily be run into the millions over the course of a 2 or 3 year period for a large transformation like this. The benefits, however, that accrue to that effort are extraordinary. We saw one organization that spent about $3 million over the course of a 28-month period, almost just about 2.5 years. And during that time, they realized an improvement of over $55 million in cost savings and revenue development. Dramatic improvements can come, but it takes time. It does take investment. One of the ways you can pay for it is, a headcount reduction sometimes. You'll find efficiencies, for example, in some of these rules where you're able to transform the organization, get them more focused. And so in some cases, you can get a 6 to 8% reduction in headcount just by doing things more efficient. Otherwise, you might reorient those resources to do more innovation and deliver more value to the organization. So you can pay for it either through cost or improvements in innovation. Both are very effective. Next.
All right, and I think this will be our last one today. So question here is, what do you think the key technology pieces are to a DevOps transformation?
Oh, goodness. Technology often takes a front row seat in these types of transformations because this is the one thing that we can look at that we can see has results. I would say that if I were making investments in technology, I'd be looking across the entire stack, from the development tools and languages that you're using to the integration pipeline and how it all comes together in a continuous delivery process, to how the compliance teams and security teams work to ensure the code is secure and compliant, all the way through the back end where we're actually monitoring those applications for their health and performance. We call that the enterprise application stack or the enterprise automation stack. And our coded enterprise perspective draws all those together so that you have one unique capability across all of them, and that's the ability to automate and get things done faster. So my sense is that you should be focusing in on automation technologies that help you deliver results with more clarity, with more feedback, with better cost control. You know, the automation advantages are tremendous. So I think that's all we have time for right now. It's been a pleasure talking with you all. If you have questions, please feel to reach out to me. I'll be glad to take and answer any questions that you might have. Erin, over to you for any closing comments.
All right, perfect, Tom. Thank you again. As you can see, Tom's information is here. So like he said, feel free to reach out to him on email or LinkedIn. And I will close it out here. So thanks again for your time, everyone, and have a wonderful day.